All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
Hello! As soon as we think of Atlantis, we immediately think of the famous flood, a disastrous event which would have occurred about 10 to 12,000 years ago, and this is what is reported in Plato's story. However, none of the many hypotheses which revolve around Atlantis gives satisfaction. The mysteries of Atlantis are still unsolved to this day. What if the problem came from the fact that we would have realized from the start a big dating error? This is what we will see in this episode. Atlantis is an alliance between 10 kingdoms. 10 kings, all descendants of Poseidon. The functioning of Atlantean society is accurately described by Plato. Atlas is the main king. It is in his kingdom that the famous Atlantis island is located, in the middle of which is this magnificent city, also described by Plato. Atlantis Island, which will be sunk in one night. In the middle of the city, which is already in the middle of the island, is the Temple of Poseidon, principal god of the Atlanteans, who was also very important in Greece since the Greeks erected a temple to him. Temple of which you can still admire the remains today. And enthroned on this temple of Poseidon is the famous Atlas pillar or sky pillar. Atlas is the carrier of the celestial sphere. Atlas carries the world, that is to say, he carries the sky. We can observe here a modern representation of Atlas who carries the celestial sphere. It's the sky pillar. In addition to Poseidon and Atlas, the Atlanteans were also very attached to the symbolism of the horned beast and more particularly that of the bull. Indeed, the 10 Atlantean kings would have ritually sacrificed a bull. But beware, it was not a bullfight, it was only reserved for the 10 kings and it was only carried out every 5 years. In his story, Plato evokes these famous Atlantean invasions, these peoples of the ocean who came to conquest the Mediterranean. He tells us how the Athenians will be the only ones, thanks to their courage, to resist the terrible Atlanteans. We are willing to believe in the heroic act of the Athenians, but how could they have faced the Atlanteans who would have arrived in 9000 BC? Indeed, there is no trace of civilization in mainland Greece before 1600 BC. We have to go back to the Mycenaean period to find civilization in Greece. There is indeed no trace of a city in Athens before 1500 BC. However, if we look at the official history of Greece, there was indeed a period during which Greece was invaded and where only the city of Athens resisted. These are the so-called Dorian invasions of 1200 BC. Dorian invaders plundered the cities of Pylos and Mycenae. Only the city of Athens was not looted and resisted this invasion. Doesn't the Atlantis story tell us about facts dating from this time? Plato also tells us that around the Acropolis of Athens, the Athenians built a huge wall to protect themselves from the Atlantean invasions. This type of wall has been found by archaeologists, and it dates back to around 1200 BC. enclosures 6 meters thick and 10 meters high. The same type of enclosures were found in Mycenaean ruins, still dating from the same period. Archaeologists call these walls the Pelagic or Cyclopean walls, and they think that these walls were built under the threat of the so-called Dorian invasions. Regarding the city of Athens, Plato precisely indicated the location of an ancient source. I quote, "And near the place of the present Acropolis there was one spring, which was choked up by the earthquakes, so that but small tricklings of it are now left round about." And in fact, this source was found and cleared in 1938. Moreover, we found a staircase which served the source, and we could date it from the 13th century BC. In addition, archaeological studies have shown that this source was indeed covered because of earthquakes. The results of these excavations show that there were indeed quite a few earthquakes in the 13th century BC. The other data of the story concerning the city of Athens at that time is undoubtedly also correct, as evidenced by the archaeologist Frank. If we compare this description with research results on Mycenaean Athens undertaken by various Greek, American and German institutes at the beginning and in the middle of the 20th century, we note astonishing coincidences. Another coincidence, the Atlantis story seems to describe the end of the famous Mycenaean writing, the Linear B script. No one survived, but the unlettered and uneducated. But all those who could write lost their lives. Indeed, the Linear B script is the Mycenaean writing, and we have found many tablets of this writing, most of them dated from 1200 BC. But we will not find more recent ones. Indeed, there is a sharp and brutal stop of the Linear B script, which stops in 1200 BC. It seems to have been due both to the invasions, but especially to the terrible natural disasters which will follow. Everything leads us to believe that Plato describes the end of the Mycenaean Civilization, which took place in 1200 BC. His description is all the more precise that we are surprised that he dated it back to 9000 BC. Is this a big mistake? How could such a smart man have been wrong?
For this we must return to the source of Plato, because in reality, Plato only transcribes the facts which were transmitted to him by Solon. Solon is the wisest of the 7 wise men of Greece, and he brought these facts back to Greece around the year 570 BC, facts which he brings back from Egypt, because the original source of Atlantis is indeed Egypt, and its Egyptian priests, whom Solon will consult in 570 BC, and whom he will then bring back to Greece. Herodotus also went to the land of the pharaohs to study with Egyptian priests, and he too will bring back some rather improbable dates. He reports in particular from Egyptian priests that between the god king Heracles, who founded Egypt, and the pharaoh Amosi, who died in 1500 BC, 17,000 years would have passed. Herodotus also tells us, "The Egyptian priests reported to me that between the first king of Egypt and the last named, 341 generations succeeded one another, while the Egyptian priests count between Dionysus and Amosi 15,000 years." One could fill several pages with the impossible dates that the Egyptian priests provided Herodotus and Manetho. The Greek historians very quickly knew that all these Egyptian dates were improbable, which is why Eudoxus of Cnidus around 370 BC and Plutarch AD 46 to 120 declared, "The Egyptians count a month for a year, Diodorus of Sicily wrote about them. In ancient times, when the movements of the sun were not yet known, the year was counted after the course of the moon. Therefore, the year consisted of 28 days. And to chronicle, so to say, King Farouk, penultimate king of Egypt, therefore contemporary king of the 20th century, declared, "Our calendar counts the time according to the moon, and not like the Gregorian calendar of most Western countries, in a year of 365 days. Therefore, our year is much shorter, it only lasts 28 days. If we transform the 8,000 to 9,000 years, years in fact lunar months of the Egyptian calculation of time, a year has 13 lunar months, we go back in time to a period between 1252 and 1175 BC, period when the events that the Egyptian priest told Solon actually took place. We are now certain that the Atlantis story relates the event of 1200 BC, and the primary source of this information is Egypt. And indeed, most of the papyri and Egyptian frescoes are dated from 1200 BC, and more particularly the Temple of Medine Habu, built by Ramses III in 1200 BC. It is therefore a safe bet that the key and the resolution of all the mysteries of Atlantis is in this Temple of Medine Habu in Egypt. And indeed, the Atlanteans attacked all the Mediterranean peoples, so that means that Egypt was also attacked. So where was Atlantis? How did this flood unfold? You will find all the answers to your questions in this sumptuous book by Jürgen Spanoff, The Secret of Atlantis, and of the Greatest Occultation of All Time, book which I have enriched. And there indeed you will have all your answers. And the Temple of Medine Habu does indeed contain keys which will lead us to the resolution of all the mysteries of Atlantis. This book cites abundant evidence, cites abundant sources. It is thanks to it that I was able to make this little video, so you can find it on Amazon or on espritviking.com. The truth disturbs, as you know, and in particular the social engineers who consequently bother me. So if you want to support me, you can do it on Tipeee, the Tipeee of the Viking spirit, which helps me to create these videos. You can share this video. I obviously urge you to do so. You can give it a like, hoping of course it doesn't disappear. You can also drop a nice comment. Don't forget to subscribe, because there will of course be more videos. The truth is a fight close to my heart. Thank you for following me, and see you next time.
À la prochaine.